The house smelled like fresh flowers and expensive candles. Gold and white balloons floated near the ceiling. A large banner across the living room read, "Happy 60th, Cynthia." The place was filled with people, family, church friends, co-workers, all dressed in bright colors and shining smiles. The music was soft, the laughter polite. Everything looked perfect. Amara stepped inside quietly. She was late. On purpose. She wore a simple black dress, nothing like the glittery gowns around her. Her heels clicked softly against the floor as she moved into the room. Heads turned. A few people whispered. She could feel it all on her skin, the tension, the judgment. She didn't belong here, not anymore. "Wow, look who finally showed up," said a voice behind her. Amara turned. Nina stood there, smiling without warmth. Her younger sister looked flawless, makeup perfect, dress hugging her slim figure just right. She held a champagne glass like she was born with it. "Hi, Nina," Amara said quietly. Nina leaned in and kissed the air near her cheek. "Try not to ruin anything tonight, okay?" Before Amara could respond, their mother appeared. Cynthia, 60 today, but still elegant, strong, and proud. Her head wrap matched her dress, both a deep royal purple. She looked Amara up and down, eyes sharp. "You came," she said flatly. "You invited me," Amara answered. Cynthia's smile was tight. "I invited you to be present, not to speak. Today is about peace. Understood?" Amara nodded slowly. Understood. Without another word, Cynthia turned and walked away, hugging another guest with a loud laugh. Nina gave Amara a look that said, "Behave," then disappeared into the crowd. Amara found a quiet corner and poured herself a glass of wine. She held it close, fingers tight around the stem. Every breath felt heavy. She watched her family, laughing, talking, pretending like nothing ever happened. Her eyes landed on a group of framed photos on the wall. One of them showed her as a little girl, sitting stiffly beside her father. She blinked, and the memory hit her hard. She was 10, crying after a church service, her father's voice in her ear, low and angry. "You will not embarrass me like this again." Then her mother's hand, pulling her away, whispering, "Smile. People are watching." Amara sipped the wine, trying to push it all down. A voice called out from the center of the room. Cynthia stood next to the cake now, glowing in the attention. "Before we begin the toasts," she said into the microphone, "I have a special surprise. Someone I haven't seen in many years, but who meant a lot to our family." The guests murmured. Then the door opened. A man stepped in, tall, older, dressed in a dark suit. He didn't smile. He looked around slowly, until his eyes met Amara's. And then he stopped, stared. Amara's glass slipped a little in her hand. She knew that face, but she hadn't seen it in decades. Amara was 15 when she first learned how silence could shape a family. In their house, speaking up was dangerous. Questions were disrespect. Tears were weakness. Her father, Patrick, didn't yell often. He didn't need to. One look from him was enough to shut down any conversation, especially if it came from her. He loved control. The house had to be spotless. The rules had to be followed. Amara was expected to smile at church, get good grades, and never talk back. But even when she did everything right, it wasn't enough. He always found something to criticize. Her tone, her walk, her attitude. She remembers one night clearly. He had come home from work, tired and quiet. The whole house froze. Amara had asked if she could go to a sleepover. He didn't even look at her. "Why are you always pushing?" he said. "I'm not," she replied softly. "I just wanted to ask." He slammed his hand on the table. Her mother didn't say a word. Nina, only 11 then, just stared at her plate. Later that year, something happened, something worse. Amara tried to tell her mother what Patrick had done. She could barely say the words. Cynthia looked at her like she was crazy. "Don't ever say that again," her mother said. "Do you know what that kind of lie could do to this family?" No one believed her. Or maybe they just didn't want to. So Amara left the day she turned 18. She packed a small bag and disappeared. No goodbye. No hugs. She never went back. She lived on friends' couches, then in a tiny studio apartment. She worked at coffee shops, took night classes, wrote in journals she never showed anyone. Eventually, writing saved her. She started publishing essays under her own name. Real stories, about growing up in a Nigerian-American household, about silence, about being dismissed, ignored, and hurt. The essays got attention. Readers thanked her. But no one in her family ever said a word about them. She wasn't even sure if they had read them. She went to therapy, slowly learned to name things. Emotional abuse. Trauma. Gaslighting. For the first time in years, she began to feel like she wasn't the problem. She was healing little by little. But still, the past never felt far away. Nina, on the other hand, stayed in the house. She became the perfect daughter. Went to law school, joined the church board, got engaged to a wealthy lawyer named Daniel who drove a black Mercedes and wore nice watches. Cynthia loved him. They were planning a big wedding next spring. To Cynthia, image was everything. A successful daughter. A nice home. A perfect birthday party. She wanted to be seen as strong, graceful, and respected, especially now that she was running for a position on the local community board. That's what today's party was really about. A room full of voters and church members. Every detail carefully planned. Amara had been invited only a few days ago. No call. Just an email. Short and cold. Hope you can attend. It would be good to show unity. She almost didn't go, but something in her chest told her she needed to. And now she was standing in that room, staring at the man who had just walked in, the so-called surprise guest. He looked older than she remembered. His hair was gray at the temples, and he walked with a slight limp. He didn't smile, just nodded slightly, still watching her. His name was Ray Mercer, retired detective. Years ago, he had worked a few quiet cases at the church. She remembered seeing him once, talking to someone in the parking lot. He never looked at her then, but now he was here, at her mother's party. Why? Cynthia spoke into the microphone again, her voice cheerful. This man helped our family a long time ago. Please welcome him. There was light clapping. Ray Mercer nodded politely but didn't speak. Instead, he made his way through the crowd, not toward Cynthia, but toward Amara. People watched. Amara's heartbeat sped up. When he reached her, he leaned in and said quietly, "Can we talk later? Somewhere private." She nodded slowly, her throat dry. In that moment, she knew this party wasn't just a celebration. Something was coming, and it would change everything. Amara stood near the hallway as the party buzzed around her. Music played, laughter floated, and waiters passed around tiny plates of jollof rice and puff-puff. But she couldn't focus on any of it. Her eyes stayed on Detective Mercer, who stood quietly near the back door, sipping a glass of water. He looked calm, but there was something heavy in his eyes. He caught her glance and nodded once. Then he moved toward her. "Can we step outside?" he asked, voice low. She hesitated, then followed him onto the patio. The air was cooler now, the sun almost gone. A few string lights glowed above them. The sounds of the party were still close, but out here, it felt quieter. "I don't have much time," Mercer said. "Didn't want to do this here, but I didn't have another choice." Amara folded her arms. "Why now? Why come to this party?" He looked at her for a moment. "I've been retired for years, but your father's name came up again. A storage unit was cleaned out last month. Your mother gave permission. Said it was junk." Amara frowned. "What does that have to do with me? I found one of his journals." She stopped breathing for a second. Mercer continued. "Inside were pages, lots of them. He wrote everything. His thoughts, his feelings. He didn't admit it like a confession, but it's all there. The grooming, the excuses, the twisted justifications. He wrote about you, and other girls. Girls from the church." Amara's mouth went dry. "Other girls?" "Yes," Mercer said softly. "You weren't the only one. You were just the only one who spoke up." She felt her knees go weak. She leaned on the railing, staring into the dark yard. "He even mentioned how your mother almost found out once," Mercer added. "He said she was too focused on appearances, that she didn't want to see the cracks." His words. Amara shook her head slowly. So she knew. Or she chose not to. Mercer was quiet. "I thought maybe I was crazy," Amara said. "For years. I thought I imagined it, or made it worse than it was." "You didn't," Mercer said. "You told the truth." She looked at him. "What do you want me to do with this?" He sighed. "That's up to you. I kept a copy of the journal. I can give it to the press. Or you can walk away. But after everything I read, I couldn't stay silent." Amara closed her eyes. Her chest felt tight, like she couldn't get a full breath. "I'm sorry to bring this here," Mercer said. "But I thought you should know." She nodded slowly. They walked back inside, just as dinner was being served. The dining room was full now. A long table with white cloth, golden plates, tall candles. Cynthia sat at the center, smiling brightly. Nina sat beside her, her fiancé whispering something in her ear. As everyone settled in, Mercer stepped forward. "I'd like to say a few words," he said loudly. Cynthia looked surprised. "Of course, Ray," she said with her public smile. He cleared his throat and held a small card in his hand. "I've known Cynthia for many years. Her family welcomed me during difficult times. Tonight, I want to share a quote I read recently. It's from an old journal. It said," he looked down, "Some people build masks so well, even they forget what's underneath. But truth has its own way of finding air." A few people clapped politely, confused. Mercer looked up and met Cynthia's eyes. She was frozen, smile gone. Nina leaned forward. "Mom, are you okay?" Amara watched closely. Her mother's hand trembled slightly. Just for a second. It was the first time Amara had ever seen fear on her mother's face. People began whispering. Cynthia forced a laugh. "Thank you, Ray. That was very poetic." But the mood had changed. Nina stood quickly and whispered to Mercer. "That wasn't part of the plan." He gave her a small, unreadable smile. Truth rarely is. Amara sat down at the edge of the room, her hands shaking under the table. Something had shifted, and it couldn't be undone. After dinner, The guests moved to the living room for dessert and more music. Laughter tried to fill the air again, but the earlier tension still hung over everything like smoke. Cynthia found Amara near the hallway and grabbed her wrist. "Come with me," she said sharply. She led her into the study and closed the door behind them. "What did you do?" Cynthia hissed. "That man came here and embarrassed me." Amara stared at her. "I didn't ask him to come. He came on his own. But you knew, didn't you? You knew what he was going to say. You let it happen." Amara's voice was calm but cold. "You need to stop blaming me. I'm not the one who wrote that journal." Cynthia's hands clenched. "You always find a way to destroy everything. Every good moment. Every event. It's like you can't help it. Did you know?" Amara asked quietly. Cynthia blinked. "What? Did you know what he did to me?" Silence. Amara stepped closer. "Tell me the truth." Cynthia looked away. "You always needed too much attention. You were always sensitive. Dramatic." "That's not an answer," Amara said. Her throat tightened. "I was a child." Cynthia's voice dropped. "You think you're the only one who suffered? You think life was easy for me? I held this family together." Amara's eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. "By pretending nothing happened. By pretending I was the problem." Cynthia stepped back. "You can't speak about this again. Do you understand? This isn't just about you. This is about all of us." Amara stared at her mother and saw it. Not strength, but fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of the truth. She walked out without another word. Later that night, Nina came to her. "You had no right," Nina said sharply. "This was Mom's big day. Why are you always trying to ruin everything?" Amara was tired. "I didn't ruin anything. I told the truth." "Truth?" Nina laughed bitterly. "You think you're the only one with a truth?" Amara looked at her sister. "What does that mean?" Nina hesitated, then lowered her voice. "There were things. I don't know. Things that felt wrong. But I didn't say anything." Amara felt her heart drop. "He did things to you too?" Nina shook her head quickly. "I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. I buried it a long time ago." "That's not how it works, Nina. It doesn't stay buried." "I can't lose everything," Nina said, voice shaking. "My job. My fiancé. Our reputation. I've worked so hard." Amara interrupted. "So did I. To stay alive." Nina's mouth opened, but she had no words. She walked away silent. The next day, Mercer called Amara. "You should publish it," he said. "The journal." His words speak louder than anything else. Amara sat in her car, the journal open on her lap. Her fingers trembled as she turned the pages. Her father's handwriting was neat, careful, almost gentle. But the words were cruel. He blamed the girls, called them confused, said God would forgive him because he never crossed the line fully. It made her sick. "I'm scared," she told Mercer. "If I put this out there, everything changes." "It already has," he said softly. "But you don't have to rush. Just don't stay silent for someone else's comfort." That night, she sat on her couch, staring at the ceiling. A memory hit her hard. She was 11. At church. Her father had preached that day about purity and obedience. Amara had cried, quietly, but her tears were noticed. Outside, behind the building, her mother slapped her across the face. "Why would you cry in front of everyone? Do you want people to think something's wrong with our family?" Amara hadn't cried in public again for years. Now, in the quiet of her apartment, she picked up her phone and called her old therapist. "I don't know if I should go public," she said. "What if it just makes things worse?" Her therapist listened, then said, "That's not the right question. The real question is, what would it mean to you to speak your truth? Not for revenge, not for attention, just for your own peace." Amara didn't answer right away, but she knew the question would stay with her. Back at the family home, Cynthia was already working. She had drafted a short statement for her campaign's social media. "I am shocked by recent claims. I had no knowledge of these things, and I fully support transparency and healing." She practiced it in the mirror. Calm, strong, in control. The next evening, they had another small dinner. Close family. Nina stood up to give a short toast. "My mother is a woman of strength," she said, voice smooth. "She has guided this family through everything." She paused. Her eyes found Amara across the table. Then she looked away. "To family," Nina finished, raising her glass. The others echoed her, but Amara didn't lift her own. She looked around the table. The silence between them was thick, not just from the last few days, but from years before. It had always been there. No one talked. No one asked questions. No one told the truth. Now she saw it clearly. The silence didn't protect them. It only trapped them. One generation passed it to the next, like a heavy, invisible chain. Amara felt the weight of it, and she knew then, if she didn't break it, no one would. The music was soft again. Plates had been cleared. The final toast was about to begin. Guests gathered around the main table. Cynthia sat in the center, glowing under the lights, smiling like nothing had happened the night before. Nina stood beside her, hand on her mother's shoulder. The room was full, but the air felt tight. Amara stood quietly in the back, holding her phone. In her other hand, folded pages from the journal. Her heart raced. Her throat was dry. She looked at Mercer, standing by the doorway. He gave her a small nod. No pressure. Her choice. Amara stepped forward. People turned to look at her. Whispers started again. I know I wasn't supposed to speak tonight, Amara said, her voice shaking. But staying silent nearly killed me. The room went still. Nina stiffened. Cynthia's smile dropped slightly. Amara took a deep breath. Some of you know me. Some of you think you do. I'm Patrick's daughter. And for years, I've been carrying something alone. She held up the journal. This belonged to my father. Gasps spread across the room. Amara unfolded the pages. These are his words. Not mine. I didn't make them up. He wrote them himself. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I only ever wanted control. She made it hard. She asked too many questions. I had to be careful. Couldn't let Cynthia suspect. But she never wanted to see it. She needed the story of us more than the truth. Cynthia's eyes widened. Her hands gripped the arm of her chair. Amara continued. The girls at church were easy to charm. I never hurt anyone, not in the way that counts. God understands weakness. A loud gasp came from someone near the back. I was 11, Amara said quietly. I tried to speak. No one listened. Cynthia stood up quickly, but her knees wobbled. She sank back down into the chair, pale and silent. More whispers. Some people left. Others just stared. Nina didn't move. Amara folded the paper. I'm done being silent. If that makes you uncomfortable, I understand. But I'm not carrying his secrets anymore. The room was quiet. One woman stepped forward. She was older, someone from the church choir. She didn't say anything, just touched Amara's arm gently. Her eyes were full of tears. She gave a small nod. Amara nodded back. Later that night, after most people had left, Amara sat in the kitchen alone. The lights were dim. A half-empty cake sat untouched on the counter. Cynthia walked in slowly. She looked tired, older. Her face was bare now, no makeup, no earrings. Just her. She sat across from Amara. I knew, she said, voice low. Not everything, but enough. Amara didn't respond. She waited. I didn't want to believe it, Cynthia continued. He was everything. A leader. A father. A good man in public. If it got out, everything would fall apart. Amara stared at her. It already did. You just didn't see the cracks. Cynthia's lips trembled. She looked down at her hands. I thought I was protecting the family. You protected him, Amara said. Not us. They sat in silence for a while. Then Cynthia whispered, I'm sorry. Amara looked away. She didn't say anything. She didn't know if she could ever believe those words. Upstairs, Nina was packing a bag. Her fiancé stood in the doorway, confused. I need space, she said. Time to think. Because of your sister? Because of everything, Nina said. I don't know who I am without the lie. He didn't understand, but he didn't argue. She zipped up her bag and walked out. As she passed the kitchen, she paused. She looked at Amara. I believe you now, Nina said softly. Amara looked up. Thank you, she whispered. Nina nodded and left the house. Cynthia stayed in the kitchen, staring at nothing. For the first time, she looked small. Amara stood and walked outside. The air was cool, and the stars were out. She took a deep breath. She didn't feel free yet, but she was no longer silent. And that was a start. Amara sat at her desk in her small apartment, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The journal lay beside her, closed but heavy. She stared at the blinking cursor on her laptop screen. Then slowly she began to type. She didn't use names. Not her father's. Not her mother's. Not the church. But she told the truth. The full truth. About growing up in a house ruled by fear and silence. About trying to speak and being shut down. About the cost of pretending everything was fine. She wrote it like she had nothing left to lose. When she hit publish, her hands were shaking. She went for a walk after, just to breathe. By the time she came back, the post had already started to spread. In the first hour, 20 people shared it. Then 50. Then hundreds. By the end of the day, it had gone viral. Amara's inbox filled with messages, some short, some long, some full of pain. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. Your story is my story. I kept my silence for years. Maybe it's time to speak. Even a few people from her old church wrote to her. One woman said she had always felt something was wrong, but was too afraid to say anything. Another said she'd been hurt too, and now she felt less alone. Amara cried that night. Not from sadness. From relief. Somewhere in town, Cynthia sat in a quiet office, facing a local news reporter. I've decided to step down from my campaign, she said carefully. Her hands were folded in her lap. The reporter asked why. My daughter is braver than I ever was, she replied. It was a small clip on the evening news, but people noticed. Cynthia didn't say much else. For once, she let the silence belong to someone else. A week later, Amara met Nina at a quiet cafe. It was awkward at first. They both reached for the sugar at the same time and laughed a little. Nina stirred her tea slowly. I read your essay, she said. 3 times. Amara nodded. Thanks. I wish I'd stood with you, Nina said. Back then. Or even now. I didn't know how. I know, Amara said. I didn't expect you to. I just needed you to believe me. I do. They sipped their tea in silence for a while, but it wasn't a bad silence. It was honest. Later that month, Mercer called her. I've donated the journal, he said, to a trauma foundation. They'll use it for training and education. Amara felt a strange mix of emotions, sadness, relief, gratitude. She thanked him. He paused. You did good, Amara. You didn't just speak. You helped others find their voice. She smiled softly. With the help of a friend from the writing world, Amara launched a podcast. She called it Unmuted. The first episode was just her, speaking alone in a quiet room. She told her story, carefully, calmly, in her own words. For those told not to speak, she said into the mic, this is for you. She interviewed survivors after that, mostly children of immigrants, mostly women. Stories of silence, shame, survival. Some laughed, some cried. All of them told the truth. People listened. The show grew. She still lived in the same small apartment, still made tea in the same chipped mug. But something in her had changed. She didn't feel like she had to prove herself anymore. Not to her family, not to her community, not even to Cynthia. One morning, she got a short email from her mother. I listened to your podcast. I still don't know how to talk about it, but I'm trying. Amara didn't respond. She didn't need to. She looked around her apartment. The sun was coming through the window. Her laptop was open, her microphone waiting. She smiled. She was finally free. The morning light poured into Amara's apartment, soft and warm. She stood by the window, holding a cup of tea, watching the sun rise above the rooftops. The city was quiet, just waking up. Her phone rested on the windowsill, playing the intro to her podcast. She heard her own voice, calm and clear. For those told not to speak, this is for you. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening. A soft vibration. A new text. It was from Nina. Listening now. Crying. Thank you for never giving up. Amara stared at the message, her throat tight. Then a small smile formed on her lips, quiet and real. She set the phone down, took a deep breath, and looked out at the light filling the sky. No more hiding. No more silence. She closed her eyes again and whispered to herself, a promise and a truth all at once. I survived. Hey besties. Thanks so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed Amara's powerful story of truth, family, and survival, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more raw, drama-filled stories. See you in the next one. Her friends invited everyone except her to their girls'